Hi, everybody. This is your friend Anthony Burrows for Life and Finances with some sacrifice and service. Now, today I want to talk about something that persons may find provocative, but it's not my intention. And the topic for me for today is money, Christians, and politics. Now, my son is 15 years old, and he and I were driving a couple of days ago going somewhere, and something came across the radio, and it was talking about politics and voting and all of that sort of stuff. And then it was a Christian channel talking about some stuff also. And then, out of the clear blue, as we got into discussion, he said, "Daddy, you know something? It is your civic duty to vote." I was taken aback by that. I was like, "Where did you get that?" He said, "I didn't get that anywhere. That's a clear thought. As you observe life, that's what you should do." So here it is now. He probably got it in school. And of course, in the pulpit, preachers will often say about your civic duty as a citizen. So here I am thinking now, a 15-year-old boy can tell you about your civic duty, but don't have a clue about financial literacy. They can tell you about politics and politicians, but no idea on the true impact and access to Christianity for many young people. You see, this centers and revolves around us as a nation, where we have this notion that politics and politicians are the solution to whatever ails us, be it poverty, crime, whatever. The idea is, hey, the politicians, let them work it out. Now, when we come to families and money and religion and politics, they usually dictate to the offspring, hey, this is my religion, you're under my roof, so this is the religion you're going to be. You're under my roof, I am expecting that you'll vote for this particular party. But at the same time, they will never speak of money and financial literacy, the handling of money. So therefore, the young persons then grow up and have this rampant poverty mindset. But now with the politicians, everyone's rich with knowledge and ideas. You see, I also think of the politicians often, as you see around election time, they would make their rounds to the various churches. And you know what? If you see that politician goes to the podium and you have extreme quiet and all eyes on him, that's an indication that everyone's listening and there's a possibility that he and his party will be the winners. Now we know politics, the idea is to serve and to build a nation. But considering these subject being so taboo among us, always remember with Christians are supposed to be the salt and light. And we know salt is for seasoning and preservation, and light is to help you see along the way. Go down the street, for instance, walking or driving at night, and all the street lights are out. It could be a little challenging if you're walking or driving. And then when we look at the politics and when we look at the churches, I'm going to look at money, Christians, and politics. Number one, when you look at the role of money with Christians and politics, now the majority rule that came about in 1967, probably the biggest churches that made an impact in that would be Baptist churches. And you know, Baptist churches evolved mostly out of slavery. That's in all the slave type areas. Most of them evolved because you could have self-governance, pastors and whatever, can just come up the ranks without having to go to colleges and universities and all of that. But now the thing is, the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church, they were the main churches at the time, and they were the ones who had the status quo. They supported minority rule. And it baffles me to this day how so many of us are Catholics and are Anglicans. It's just amazing, because they, in supporting minority rule, they indirectly supported slavery. Now the thing is, when we think of money, the word money, you often hear Christians and people would say money isn't everything. It's of the devil. But the time when you hear them speak of money, it's to say how broke they are and how little of it they have and how much of it they need. But we must always remember that money is a God-established principle, and it's a way of extracting our value for all the services and whatever we render in a day or in a year or whatever. Now, Bahamians are very proud of our financial situation, and as a nation, even though we are in rampant, I guess we could call it indebtedness, we are still better off than 9/10 of the world on the individual level. You find that in Europe, in most instances, we are better off than them in terms of how our comfort of living, the way we can move about and all that sort of stuff. But of course, taxes just kill them, and they rely mainly on public transit. We are better off in most instances than Asia. That includes Japan and China. Better off than Central and South America. And we are better off than 40 to 60% of Americans as well as Canadians. And I have something to talk about one of these days concerning with so many people wanting to move and immigrate to these areas. You see, but now we have to conquer one thing. We are too consumer driven. Credit cards, cars, TVs, phones, frequent trips to Miami for shopping. And we're going into Walmart and all of those. And then you remember that of us are slaves to goods that only have a shelf life of 3 to 7 years. Always remember now, tangible wealth. That's start and grow a business, land ownership, saving and investing. But now, one of the things that impact us politically a lot of times is that the average Bahamian doesn't financially contribute to political parties. And where you don't contribute, you have no clout or influence. And when you walk down the corridors of time, especially over the last 30 years, you can see a lot of decisions and things have gone against us as a people, based on us not having the influence and clout within the parties. Now, when you're looking at churches and money, and how much money they take in and things of that sort, you got to look at where are they located. Are they located in the urban centers or in the Family Island? Now, the urban centers, that's Nassau, Grand Bahama, Abaco, and I guess Exuma is fast evolving into one of those too. Then you got to look at the church size and then the denomination, because not all denominations preach tithing. Now, churches tend to use their money for salaries as well as employee benefits. Then some cases they have schools, so they have to maintain and deal with the schools, pay teacher salaries and all that also. There's soup kitchen, literature, television ministry, radio ministry, all of those sort of things, as well as maintenance and utilities for the buildings. But get this, most churches in the Bahamas are barely getting by. So we're looking at money, Christians, and politics. Now let's look at some data. In the Bahamas, we have about 16 Christian denominations. Baptists make up 32%, Anglican 20%, Catholic 19%, Methodist 6%, Church of God 6%, Adventist, to my surprise, we are 6%, Jehovah's Witnesses 1%. And all of this is of the population. Now, persons tithing in a congregation is said to be between 10 and 25% of the members. And it's said that the average Christian gives 2.5% of their income as offering or tithe. Then now, when you look at the giving, you can only find for a few of them Catholics, they give 15%. About 15% of them give actually tithe. Adventist 30%, Anglican 5%, Jehovah's Witnesses 3%. And then I was shocked when I spoke with someone from the Salem Baptist Church who said that 90% of their members actually tithe. Now, when you look at monies taken in by the churches, you have the Catholic Church, they took in $170 billion last year. But when you see the Pope travel and see Vatican City, you can see, boy, they are swimming in money. One of the things that has been found and thought and published is that since 1990, that's the world over, giving has been down by 50%. And one of the things they further found was that the higher the income that a family went into, the less giving they did. But they also found that you have 27 out of persons attending 27 services a year, they would give on average $3,000 a year. Now let's look at the generations. The baby boomers, 1946 to 64, and I fall in there. give 42% of all the offering that a church get, even though they make up only 30% of the nation's population. Gen Xers from 65 to 1980, they give 19% of the church offering. They make up 27% of the population. And the Y generation from 1981 to 1997, they give 7% of the church's offering, even though they make up 30% of the population. One thing that was observed by churches is that the poorer a community, percentage-wise, they gave more. And then you see churches are dwindling and dying around the world. When you go to the first world countries, you see that the immigrant population coming in from the Caribbean, Asia, and Africa are the ones who are keeping the church alive. You see, the practice of Christianity, when it comes to impact and influence, it always depends on what it is you do as opposed to what you say. Now, Gandhi always had a very famous saying that people like to quote, and I like to quote too. He said, "I like your Christ, I do not like your Christians." And he said, "Your Christians are so unlike your Christ." That's amazing. Causes me to remember a gentleman when I was a teenager on a summer job, Mr. Carey. He was so different and he stood out. He didn't steal time, wasn't chatting up all the gals. Just a lot of things stood out about him. And then I met him about 10, 15 years later when I gave my life to Christ. Came in and lo and behold, he was a deacon and a strong person in his church. So it is differentness, and the Christians are expected to be salt and light. Which then brings me, as I get closer to wrapping up, as I look at the situation when we think in terms of further impact of Christians and politics, I like to think of the Quakers. Now, they were different. See, they didn't support the notion of having a priesthood or pastors. They didn't support tithing. They didn't support the monarchy or even any form of government. So in a situation like this, then they also didn't show special respect to the wealthy. And they were hard against slavery, and they saw all men as equal. So everybody was against them. So in Europe and in the Americas, they were slaughtered as a people. Now, as we come to a close, we're looking at politics, segment of Money, Christians, and Politics. You see now, politics really is just activities with governance of a country or an area. And it is said, especially debate between parties having power, and we see that all the time in Parliament with our guys back and forth as they have debates. Then you have that informal politics, which takes place in parties as well as even in homes. This is now activities aimed at improving one's status or increasing power within an organization. And you see sometimes a person jump from one party to the next party, things like that. They're doing it in their self-interest to obtain better position. And I don't know if I walk on anybody's foot with that, but that's really what it works down to. And in the Bahamas, as I was saying, when the politicians, when election time come, would make their rounds to the churches, there's barely any, it's very blurry between church and state in the Bahamas, because it's often said we are a Christian nation, and then the politicians are members of the church. I can always remember Caldwell and Bristol when I was a young boy and approaching, and in my teens, in Christ the King in Ridgeland Park. And at the end of the service, he was an MP for whichever area at the time. He would stand at the door as the priest would be at one door, and he would shake hands, and it was considered a normal thing. And I looked at that at the time, I was like, this kind of hilarious. But when you look at the influence or the lack of influence when it comes to the church, we think of Martin Luther, and people they call this reformer, this tremendous hero. Now, what happened when he did his item, some people kind of lessened their respect for the established church, and that was deserved. Then it was an impetus as it began the descent of the monarchies. So you see when the French Revolution and even the Haitian Revolution kind of came out of that. Thing is, Martin Luther was a prolific writer. He wrote 600 or more books. But he wrote a book that stood out, which I didn't realize was anti-Semitic. And the book he wrote was Jews and Their Lies. And that was published 3 times. in his lifetime. It sold out every time it was published. No wonder Hitler came about. No wonder Germany was the nation that did the things that they did, because Martin Luther was a German and a deep thinker with 600 books circulating out there. Wow. See, the thing is now, we are expected as a people to start taking personal responsibility for us and ours. You see, one of the things I like about the Bible is that they are raw when it comes to the heroes and the shortcoming. So I am saying, as we go forward, become responsible with your money, develop financial literacy. Because if you develop it, my brother develop it, and the other individual, then it's going to lead to a stronger financial nation. And Christians, you must be salt and light. Influence. Politics. Whew, I know what to say about that, except say, pray for us. And may the God of heaven and his Son, the Christ, bless and prosper you.